Hello, my name's Jack Howard and welcome to The Screen Test. This is a show where we take some of our favourite films and TV shows and put them through a series of rounds to decide definitively and officially and scientifically which are some of the greatest of all time.
Oh!
Bang.
Oh, damn.
Breaking Bad?
Woo!
Rhianna, you're going to get a bonus point for making Clarisse's dad cry.
Brilliant.
Prisoner of the moment, like I said.
I'm so sorry, Joe. You're so cross with me.
You just sacrificed yourself. Joining me, as always, we have chief film critic at The Independent. It's Clarisse Loughrey. We have 1/3 of the cyber nerds, Joe Ikhinmwin. And we have, this week joining us, we have film and TV critic Rhianna Dhillon. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Good.
Hello.
Hello. We also have Alexa here, if we ever need her for anything. Alexa, tell me a secret.
I'm a huge Keanu Reeves fan. Just ask me to talk like Keanu.
Alexa, talk like Keanu.
Dude, strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Bang. Oh, she finessed it.
Nice.
Okay, so I think in the past year, we've all managed to catch up on a bit of TV, almost like there was nothing else to do. And on Prime Video, there's some great American TV dramas such as Mad Men, Mr. Robot, and American Gods, just to name a few. And this was inspiration for me to pick this week's episode, which is the best American TV drama ever. Okay, so this is how it works. I'm going to ask you each what your favourite American TV drama is, and then we're going to put them through a series of rounds. And if you win the round, you get 3 points. If you lose the round, you get 1 point. And if you come in the middle, you get 2 points. It's simple enough. So let's start with Rhianna. What is your favourite American drama?
My favourite American drama is The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Nice choice. Why have you picked that?
This was a show that got me through lockdown. Like, I only discovered it during the pandemic. And there are three series up on Amazon Prime at the moment. And it's about this woman who has a seemingly perfect life in the 50s. She's a housewife. She's supporting her husband, who is dreaming of becoming a stand-up comedian. And then he breaks up with her because he's not very funny and he sort of blames it on her. And in some sort of drunken stupor, she stumbles on stage and finds out that she's actually fucking hilarious herself. So that is just basically the premise. And because it's set in the 50s, in 50s New York as well, it looks incredible. Like, I know we're going to talk about this later, but it looks brilliant. The performances are excellent. It's this fantastic ensemble cast. And because it's in this pastel-coloured world, it is such a lovely escape from our current reality.
Okay, Joe, what is your pick and why have you picked it?
My favourite US drama is The Sopranos. The Sopranos is the story of American gangster Tony Soprano and how he goes about living his daily life as a family man and as the boss of the mob. And it also just takes us into a deeper dive into his mental state. He's the mob boss, but he's also suffering from panic attacks, and it just puts us into a dynamic that you've never seen. Usually we see mobsters and gangsters being glorified for all the stuff they do, but it gives you a very human look at mobster life and what they're doing at home. It's also got a great cast of characters that were all relatively unknown going in and came out the other side, stars.
Okay, so we've got two series that are quite easy to sum up. And now we come on to the most complicated one to try, and I'm looking forward to this. Clarisse, what is your favourite and why have you picked it?
So I picked Twin Peaks.
What's it about?
Well, somebody killed Laura Palmer. Who? We're about to find out over the course of 1 1/3 series.
Yeah, do you count the 2017 one as its own thing, or is it? What do you think of?
I mean, look, because David Lynch is David Lynch. He's all like, it's not a TV series, it's a movie. And you go, ha ha ha, ha. Very good, David Lynch. It is a TV show, though. So, yeah, I think of it completely as just the 3rd season of Twin Peaks, because I know stylistically it's very different in a lot of ways, but like thematically and the way it continues the story makes perfect sense to me, because at the end of season 2, Laura Palmer says, I might be getting this wrong. I'll see you again in 25 years. And then we did.
Okay, so we have The Sopranos versus The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel versus Twin Peaks. All excellent choices. And I'm just going to be upfront. I've only seen, out of those three, I've only seen the first season of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And because you've all suggested what your favourite episodes are, which we're going to talk about later in the show, I've watched singular episodes of Twin Peaks, The Sopranos, and I've watched a later episode from The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And I don't think that's weird, because I think that we're living in a time right now where we're essentially just exchanging TV shows back and forth to each other. You're like, oh, I've just seen this. Have you seen it? No, I've been watching this. You should watch this. So it's this constant thing. So I think we could probably do this subject again and have an entirely different discussion. But first, we're going to do the IMDB rating round, which is the only round I don't have any power in. This is the power of the people. We're going to find out in what order IMDb ranks your shows. But first, I want to ask, what do you think is going to be the highest rated, and what do you think is going to be the lowest rated? Take it away, whoever you want.
I personally think it's like hands down got to be Sopranos. When I heard that we're going to be talking about Sopranos today, I've never seen an episode, which I know is pretty dreadful. But equally, it's like if I haven't seen it by now, it's been out for 20 plus years. Am I ever going to get around to it? I don't know. But I know it's supposed to be pretty good. So I think that's probably going to be number one. I think Twin Peaks has so many good qualities, but it's also can be seen as terrible. So maybe misunderstood, Clarisse. Maybe misunderstood. And for that reason, I think it's probably going to be last. And I think Mrs. Maisel is just going to be sitting pretty in the middle.
Who agrees? Who disagrees?
I'm going to have to agree. I think if they gave out 10s on IMDb, this would be, Sopranos would get it.
They do?
Nah, they don't. They don't. They say they do. It's an illusion that they give you, but they don't.
It's 1-3 that brings it down.
Yeah, it's just that one person. It's the you who hasn't seen it.
Can't be that good.
Then I'm gonna give Twin Peaks. I'm gonna put Twin Peaks in last as well, just because I think it's got a cult following. That means that when it came out, everyone was so. I'm gonna think that's gonna drop the IMDb rating a bit, and then The Marvelous Mrs. I'm gonna think that everyone's currently a prisoner of the moment and just over scoring it, so it's going to be in their second.
Clarisse,
I have a factual correction. Twin Peaks was actually massively popular when it first premiered. I think it broke ratings, a pilot episode. So it was like, this is the thing. Everyone thinks that Twin Peaks is like some niche cult thing.
They referenced it in The Simpsons, and honestly, they nailed it. You know, Homer going, "Brilliant!
Apparently,
I have no idea what is going on." That's how I felt watching that one episode.
Gorbachev phoned the president and was like, "Who killed Laura Palmer?" So it was huge when it came out, but then season 2 happened, and I know I'm gonna take the hits for it because when they revealed, basically ABC forced David Lynch and Mark Frost to reveal who killed Laura Palmer, and after that it kind of went because David Lynch got bored and he went off to make Wild at Heart and only came back for the final episode. So yeah, I agree. It's the same.
You think it's going to be? You think that the rating? Everybody agrees that the rating is going to be Sopranos, top with Twin Peaks bottom and Mrs. Maisel in the middle.
Yeah. Even though they're wrong.
There's only one way to find out. Let's do the obvious one first. Alexa, tell me the rating of The Sopranos on IMDb.
The IMDb rating for The Sopranos is 9.2 out of 10.
That's pretty close to a 10. 9.2? That's pretty high. Okay. The people like The Sopranos. Okay. Alexa, tell me the IMDb rating of Twin Peaks.
Twin Peaks IMDb rating is 8.8 out of 10.
Whoa.
8.8 is pretty high.
You got some life.
Thank you.
Do we think that The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel can beat 8.8?
I'm going to go no.
You don't think so?
I'm slightly worried now.
Possibly no.
What number do we think it's going to be at?
I'm going to get it's
also
like 7.8 high.
Okay.
High sevens.
Can it be 8.8? Alexa, tell me the IMDb rating of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
The IMDb rating of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is 8.7 out of 10.
Oh, damn. So close, but you were all wrong. Yeah. So the actual order is The Sopranos. I'm going to give you 3 points. And then Twin Peaks with 2 points, and The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel with 1 point. So that's the first round. The second round is cast. So we're going to be talking about specifically why your show stands out because of who's playing your main characters. And we're going to go to The Sopranos first. Joe, take it away.
All right, my cast starts off with Tony Soprano, which is played by James Gandolfini, sorry, excuse me. And I want to say he carries the show, but the supporting cast in this is also so good. But just him, he's been nominated 6 times for, and I'm not even someone who like lives by nominations and stuff
and awards
like that.
And that.
But he's been nominated for the best actor for TV drama 6 times. He's won it 3 times. The next main actress in the show, Edith Falco, who plays his wife Camilla's, also was nominated 6 times, won the award 3 times as well. She's also in Nurse Jackie and starred in Oz prior to The Sopranos. She plays just one of the strongest female characters I've ever seen in any TV drama, and it is great to have her bounce off Tony Soprano in this show, because it's like with most shows at this time when this came out in 1999, you just never saw families that were dysfunctional, and this mob family is dysfunctional. You've got the dad who's the head of a mob boss, you've got the mum who's pretending like her husband isn't the head of a mob gang but loves the life that she's living, the high class, the money, all of that, but she just tries to turn a blind eye to all of the murders and the weird stuff that happens around the house and the family. These actors are perfectly cast for these roles, and I've never seen anything like this, and this is what's crazy. Like, if you guys get a chance to watch just one episode, you will know instantly that the show is perfect. It touches on subject matter that might not be for everyone, but like if you're into film, if you're into good television, if you're into family drama, or just into seeing people getting suffocated with plastic bags, this is the show for you.
Dead wrapped in plastic. That's like my
Wrapped
thing.
in plastic.
Wrapped in plastic.
So talk to me about the cast in Twin Peaks then.
It's interesting. You've kind of got 2 groups. You've got the original gang, which what I find fascinating about them is that they have been those characters for the rest of their career. Like Kyle MacLachlan has been steadily working ever since Twin Peaks. I mean, he's continued to work with David Lynch. He's like done Desperate Housewives, Sex and the City, but everyone sees him and they go, oh yeah, it's still Cooper. Like, do you want a cup of coffee? And it's the same for Peggy Lipton, like even Laura Flynn Boyle, I think Diana Ashbrook. So you've got that side of it. And then you've got what David Lynch did when he came back to make season 3. And he went, I'm going to cast everybody. And they released the cast list before the season came out, and it was 200 names long, and there's people like Laura Dern, Naomi Watts, Tim Roth, Monica Bellucci, Berenice Barlow, like literally just every person who you would imagine might circulate around David Lynch.
Just a quick question, just to play devil's advocate, because I would say, and this is somebody who's only seen brief things from Twin Peaks, but like I said, I just wanted to put it to you. Do you think that the show is successful because of who's casting it, or more because David Lynch has got a very strong voice? Is that more about what makes the show than the cast?
I think the thing with David Lynch is that he's really good at picking actors. And he always finds people who have this essence about them. Like, if you take Kyle MacLachlan and Naomi Watts, because they're like my 2 favorite of his, and I guess Laura Dern as well, they both have this thing where there's such an essence of like purity about them. I mean, Kyle MacLachlan, you see him on Twitter like tweeting away about his wine company, and he seems like the sweetest man on earth, and there's like a sweetness around him. And you have that with like Naomi Watts and Laura Dern. And so he puts these very wholesome actors in this environment, and somehow out of them like emerges this weirdness. And so I think it's maybe a little bit different from The Sopranos. Like, yeah, different people could have played those roles, but David Lynch is incredibly smart in having picked them, if that makes sense.
But he also chooses some actors that are just terrible. Like, you can't say that the character of James is played by a good actor. Like, that's just, like, there are some performances which are so horrendously, like, stilted and wooden and weird, even in the world.
To the point where you're like, why did he do, rather than like it being...
Yeah, but that's because it's Twin Peaks. You have to kind of put it in the context of it was 1990, and like we'll get into this later, but the only shows that had existed until Twin Peaks were like Dallas and Days of Our Lives.
So it was completely breaking new
territory.
And they didn't know how to act in 1990.
No,
that was the problem with 1990.
Yeah.
No,
You've got to remember, it's 1990. They didn't know how to act. It's a new thing.
It's more that like that style of acting is very deliberate because they're bringing over, because everyone in Dallas can't act either. Like, it's just a thing.
I've never seen Dallas either. I've
just they
not
could
heard great
trust me. They couldn't act. Like, none of the people in these soap operas could act, and so they sort of like brought over that style very deliberately. Because if you look at Kyle MacLachlan's performance, like, we know that Kyle MacLachlan is an excellent actor, and yet there is this very deliberate stiltedness to his performance.
I know what you mean as well, that like in earlier television, there was a difference between being a film actor and being a television actor, and that has blended now. That ended in
1999 on January 10th when The Sopranos hit
Rhianna,
our screens.
I'm going to come to you now.
Okay.
You've had your time.
I'm sorry.
You've had your time. It's time to talk about The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
So this stars Rachel Brosnahan, who I haven't seen in a huge amount of things, but I feel like she's been a jobbing actress for quite a long time. And you might know her from House of Cards. She plays Cool Girl in House of Cards. And I think that was something that she had a bit of a breakthrough from. She was in like one episode of Gilmore Girls, and it's the same creator, Amy Sherman Palladino. I don't know how to pronounce her name. And I think the fact that Amy had seen something in Rachel all those years ago in Gilmore Girls and then cast her as the star of her new show was a huge, huge deal. And she is phenomenal. She has to carry that almost entirely. I guess a bit like James Gandolfini in that she is this central character, but then again has a fantastic ensemble around her, including Alex Borstein, who is so brilliant. She has such a brilliant voice. Lois in Family Guy. You might also know her as the My First Period woman from Friends. She's
That was quite a good impression. Well done.
actually unrehearsed. She is fantastic and is such a angry character and brings so much humor with that, next to Midge Maisel's kind of really fast talking, always kind of like up character. They kind of bounce off together so well.
Even their height difference is funny.
It's great. She's tiny, she's tall. And something else they do really, really well is build up a lot of tension and romance in slightly different ways with the male cast. So you have Luke Kirby come in as the comedian Lenny Bruce, who was a real character. Midge Maisel isn't a real character, but in her world, real people come and go. She's loosely, I think, based on Joan Rivers, kind of that sort of era of comedian growing up in the 50s. And
saying rude things she shouldn't say.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, her phrase is like tits up. Right? She in episode 1, she bears her tits on stage and gets immediately arrested, which is how she meets Lenny Bruce. And so this is episode 1. This is the pilot. And they very, very slowly build this relationship up. The kind of chemistry between Rachel Brosnahan and Luke Kirby is fantastic because it's such a slow burn. They give you time with these characters to make you think, oh, they're just friends. Oh, it's just platonic. It's a shame. They'd be great. And then like 3 series later, they go on one hot date and it suddenly erupts, all of this tension from episode 1. And I feel like those characters, those actors really hold that and make you believe in that it was really, really worth the wait.
Joe's got something to say.
Yeah, it's just tough for me with like both of these shows because I'm like, how many seasons of The Marvelous Mrs.
We're on the
so
3rd
far.
season.
There's 3 seasons. Like, have we even hit the threshold yet to like really know how good the show is? Like, and
yeah, because it's not one where I'm like, wait until season 3, that's when it gets good. It's
no,
good from the pilot.
Listen, I give you a credit. You say it's good from the beginning, and I'll take your word for it. But I feel like if we're talking about TV shows, there's a longevity that also comes with them. Do you know what I'm saying? And I feel like 3 seasons is. I would like to know what happens in the 4th season, how you feel about it in the 5th and 6th one. Do you know what I'm saying? If we're going to talk about it being the greatest US TV show ever. And
Indiana
Twin Peaks
Jones
got
says
cancelled, didn't
it's not
it?
the mileage, it's the whatever.
I mean,
Yeah,
The
that's what it
Sopranos
says.
has got 6 perfect seasons, so...
Yeah, but David Lynch could make... See, this is the thing with Twin Peaks. Everyone wants David Lynch to
So
make
what happened after
more
season 2?
seasons.
What? Like, why is it 25 years till we get the next season?
Because he went to do other things.
Oh, okay. More important
Because he got
things.
bored in season 2.
Yeah.
Like we all did.
Yeah, okay.
There's no boring Sopranos seasons. So there's that.
Okay, we'll move on because I think we've got other topics to cover. But for this first one, I'm going to quickly just get the points out of the way because I'm just going on what you're saying to me. Because like I say, I don't know any of these shows well enough to bring my own personal bias to it. So I'm going on how you're pitching it to me.
I hadn't even managed to tell you about Sterling K. Brown before I got interrupted.
I'm so sorry, but we're out of time on that, and you can bring it up in another
He's
round, I
also in
promise. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly say The Sopranos gets 3 points, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel gets 2 points, and Twin Peaks gets 1 point.
Give it 1 point to Laura Dern.
I'm sorry,
but you
Laura
can to
Dern.
Naomi Watts.
I will apologise personally to her. So at the moment, The Sopranos has 6 points, and Twin Peaks and The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel are head to head with 3 points each. Okay, so the next round is memorable episode. We usually do memorable scenes, but since this is television, I want to know the one episode that you think stands out above all the rest and why that is. What do you think that episode is bringing? And we're going to start with Rhianna because you got cut off in the last round.
Thank you. It's Comedy or Cabbage. That is the name of the episode, and it's also a line from the episode. This is season 3, episode 8, and why I've picked it is because I feel like it's the best episode that epitomizes the whole series of Mrs. Maisel, because you get a little bit of everything that we've seen so far, and it sort of culminates in this really gorgeous evening between Midge and what's his name?
Bruce.
Lenny Bruce. Thank you. And it is just really delightful from start to finish. And it also makes me laugh. What I love about the fact that this is about a stand-up comedian is not that you have to find all of her sets funny, because, you know, it's comedy in the 50s. There are definitely some differences, and I don't get all of the references. And that really doesn't matter because the rest of the cast make this hilarious. So you get a moment between Midge and her parents with, you know, there's been so many ups and downs with her parents by this time in season 3, but they are like at their wits' end where they're living in Queens, that they've come down to Miami to see their daughter, who they really do disapprove of her job and what she's doing, but they've come because they need some sort of, I don't know, sanity. So they come to a stand-up comedian who is like running around Florida with this incredible soul singer, Shy Baldwin. So we see a bit of stand-up, we see like just a really lovely continuation of her relationship with her parents. And then we have Shy Baldwin's performance, which is amazing. So, and also, I haven't even mentioned, you have all these incredible shots, like Amy Sherman Palladino's direction is phenomenal.
It's the sort of show that just lets itself indulge in the production design and the
Yes.
costumes and just lets you look at it and go, this is beautiful, isn't it? Look
Yeah.
how beautiful that is.
But also, it doesn't cut all the time. You can just stay in one room, but you're twisting and turning and walking around it in one unbroken shot each time. And that never gets old for me.
And I love that in this episode specifically, there is a moment where they point out there's a staircase here that's just designed, it doesn't go anywhere,
No.
it's just designed for women to come down
walk
so they can
down.
show their pretty dresses, which for me felt like her being like, that's sometimes what this show is. I just want to show off something nice.
I think that's exactly what it is. And with Midge, you know, I think we're so used to seeing that kind of like stereotypical strong female lead, which is just like a really overdone sort of turn of phrase. And with Midge, she does have aspirations to be a housewife, but she's also incredibly funny, and that she's found this like second lease of life. And I think that she likes to show off her pretty dresses, but she also likes to banter very wittily, and she also likes to indulge in these gorgeous romantic moments with Lenny Lenny Bruce, and you get a bit of their repartee as well. As you say, the production design is so beautiful, and we're kind of out of New York by this point, which you think would mess up the running of the show. We're so used to being in New York, being with her there, but being in Florida just adds a whole new challenge for us, the audience, for the production team, and they really pull it off because they go to Miami, they film in Florida, and you can tell so much of this is authentic and joyful. It brings me so much joy watching this episode. It makes me so happy. And that's sometimes what we need. We don't need overcomplicated plots. You can just pick up this episode, watch it, understand exactly what this show is about and who it's for.
Okay.
I can give you 1 point in your favor. So this is my dad's absolute favorite show on the planet. He thinks it's the greatest thing that has ever created
When
by
Clarisse
mankind.
said, "Oh, my dad is a big fan of one of these shows that we've picked," I was like, "Oh, he's a massive fan of The Sopranos." She was like, "No, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel."
And I texted him being like, "Hey, can you tell me something bad about Marvelous Mrs. Maisel? Because I've seen bits of it, I've not seen all of it." And he just takes it back saying, "Sometimes the cinematography is so beautiful it makes me cry." I was like, that's not helpful.
Okay, so
Thank
Rhianna,
you.
you're going to get a bonus point for making Clarisse's dad cry.
Brilliant. Thank you.
So
I
that's-
felt
What
like
am
I
I
had to
doing?
be honest and give that to you because it made
Thanks,
me laugh
Clarisse.
so much.
Clarisse, what episode have you picked from Twin Peaks? Why have you picked it? Why do you think it's the peak of television? Blah, 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 blah. Tell us all about
The
it.
peak.
Well,
Television.
Peak,
the
very
peak
good.
of the Twin Peaks of television. I picked Part 8 from Twin Peaks: The Return, which to me is the greatest single thing I have ever seen on TV
Rihanna
in
immediately
my
shaking her head.
entire
and looks
life.
gasped.
Like, I get it. It is basically an hour-long piece of experimental art, and that's not everybody's thing.
It's batshit.
I think
It
it
is,
is batshit,
but
but I
that's what makes it
really,
amazing.
really enjoyed it. I mean, nothing has come close to that feeling of going through the space vortex in 2001.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's thematically really similar to that because I'm trying to do it without spoiling too much. There is a demonic spirit in Twin Peaks called Killer Bob, and he's
And it's
just a
it's
scary
as
looking
hilarious as it sounds. When his face pops up every time, it just makes me laugh.
Yeah, well, because
How?
the guy,
It's
okay, the
terrifying.
guy who played him was just a crew member that happened to
Great.
be in shot, and David Lynch saw him and went,
So we're just making this up as we go.
That's David Lynch.
"Yeah, that's
what he
David
does.
Lynch. He's literally just a genius level kinetic. He's like on some other astral plane, just making this stuff, and there's no plan, but it's all genius." And so the episode, part 8, is the backstory of the creation of Killer Bob, which David Lynch connects to the first testing of the atomic bomb in 1945 in New Mexico. And so you have the episode start with the atomic bomb goes off, and then you go inside the atomic bomb, and it's pure 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Even the moment, the imagery of when the atomic bomb goes off, it looks both like it's far away and very close. It's
It looks
just
tiny close
yeah,
up.
it's like a
Like a toy town.
incredible trickery of the eye. I don't know how they designed it, but I was watching it and trying to work it out. And then also in my memory, I was like, haven't the Nine Inch Nails just been playing?
Yeah.
Like, it's just this
Yeah.
strange, weird thing where you don't really remember was that in the thing I watched before, or is that actually in this thing that I'm watching right now?
Yeah, because there's just a little break. They go, "This episode's really intense. Let's have a little break and let the Nine Inch Nails play," and then you get a full song, and it's great. So you go into the atomic bomb, and then you see like the creation of a new kind of evil, and it's in Cosmic, and the giant, who's a character from the other seasons, he's there. And then he also they create the spirit of Laura Palmer, who's created to be this sort of, I don't know, there's lots of interpretations, like, is she good, is she a form of innocence, but she's kind of the anti-Killer Bob, and it's really hard to explain. I
think explaining it is probably just kind
Yeah.
of ruining it. What is it that, like, in that episode with all that imagery and all that sound, what's getting you? What is it? What's the feeling that you're getting when you're watching it?
I mean, I think for me, like, what is so brilliant about David Lynch is that he can plug into some level of terror that is beyond our sort of superficial comprehension. like you watch that episode and there's nothing in it that should be scary because it's an atomic bomb goes off. There are creepy woodsmen who are like, we got a light. And it's sort of creepy and you should just watch it and be like, well, this is quite weird. But something about it and the way that he taps into your psyche, it is the most intensely frightening thing I have seen for a long time. And maybe the other intensely frightening things I've seen have just been other David Lynch projects.
But what I find really interesting about the fact that you've picked this episode specifically is because Twin Peaks has a narrative, or it definitely does at the beginning anyway, and it is all about Laura Palmer and also just like this town of Twin Peaks. And I kind of love that as a soap. I think it works really, really well. But then you've picked the episode where it just absolutely goes on another scale, like on another plane, because you're thinking this is the best episode because it's nothing like the rest of the series of Twin Peaks.
I think it's because it's nothing like any other TV that has ever been broadcast before or since. I think that's what struck me about it so much, because I was watching The Return live as it was going out, and I just remember sitting there being like, this is so unlike, like, how is this even TV? Like, how did this happen? This is like, not to diss on The Sopranos, but like you can't compare The Sopranos where it's like he walks into the therapist's office and they have these like great interesting conversations and it's tense psychological with like, hey, I've done a 1 hour portrait of the creation of evil coming out of the atomic bomb. It is a pure like experimental art. It's going back to David Lynch's sort of early days. You kind of see it in Eraserhead, these like really purely weird, scary, freaky experimental art films, and it's completely abstract and it has no plot, but also it has a plot because it's really crucial to the explaining of like who Bob and Laura Palmer are.
Does it actually explain that though?
Like
it offers up, it doesn't explain, it
sort
offers up other stuff. Like, when we see the face of Laura Palmer and that beautiful golden orb, we're not like, oh, so is she like the sort of, she like
but you kind of get it on a subconscious level, because it's going, hey, he's like this is pure evil, this is pure light, and you realize that everything that happened in Twin Peaks, it wasn't just like a murder, it was about something more.
All right, Joe, how does your Sopranos episode beat an experimental art film on the creation of evil?
Good luck.
I don't know. Besides seeing probably the face of real evil in The Sopranos, I picked season 1, episode 4, called Meadowlands. Now there's a lot of dynamics to this episode. Not as many as in the Twin Peaks one, but the one that I want to stick with kind of is Tony Soprano's son in this episode. So in this episode starts with Tony Soprano coming downstairs and his son's playing PlayStation or N64 at the time, actually. Yeah. They have a little heart to heart moment where Tony's son beats him in a game, and then Tony kind of holds his hands over his eyes, and like they're just having a great father-son moment. And then it goes off, and Tony's son goes to school the next day, sees a kid he doesn't like, they're pulling a prank on him, they get into a fight. The next day they both go home. Tony's mom, the kid's mom, Camilla, is talking to him about, oh, you ripped one of your shirts, you got to make that $40 back up. He goes to school the next day, sees the kid again, tells him he's got to give him his money. The kid says no. They said, I'll meet you at the pit at 3 p.m. The next day they meet at the pit at 3 p.m. The kid walks up to him, opens up his wallet, gives him $40 and walks away. And everyone in the crowd who came to school that day to see that fight is like, yo, whoa, what's going on? And then one of the kids says, yeah, he's really scared of you. But what's really happened is the mum has called the other mum, and the dad that day saw Tony Soprano buying a Christmas tree and just had an axe.
Completely coincidentally,
and had an axe in his hands, finds out about the scenario and tells that kid to pay the boy and just leave it there because he doesn't want any dramas. But I think
it feels like in that moment, everybody else knows what his dad does except for him. Everyone else does know except for him. And then it ends with the death of one of the bosses in the mob. Now, so everyone's at the funeral, and at the end, the sister comes up to him and says, like, don't you know what's going on? Like, it's a crazy...
I don't know if you understand, but like when you're a boy and you're trying to have a fight, or you're two people having a fight, he needed that fight to validate himself in school that day. And when he won that fight that way, he was powerless. He realized how powerful his dad was, but he lost respect that day. And I feel like that plays a part for the next 6 seasons on who this boy becomes because of this day when someone didn't want to fight him. And that is just like every episode of this show has so many deep levels with every single character. That storyline there is a throwaway storyline in this episode. There's things going on with the cousin. There's things going on with Tony. Tony's is taking more responsibility in becoming a mob boss that day. And I just feel like the show is just incredible on different people will take different things from it. And
yeah, I mean, like I said, I've only seen this. I jumped in on episode 4, season 1, and I knew what was going on. And here's my obvious review of The Sopranos. It's really good. It's really good. And for me, it was like watching Tony Soprano understand and learn that he can be in charge without being quote unquote in charge, and he can start manipulating people just from behind the scenes and getting what he wants. And I loved the relationship he has with the therapist. I thought that it was just really interesting to see that grow, and also that he starts like getting somebody to follow her and figure out what her life is, and like how he's manipulating all that as well. I just was so into it.
There's parts of the show that everyone will be interested into. I know sometimes you can get caught up in Sopranos, it's about gangsters, but it's about a family, and it has transcended that. And all the shows we watch now that come out now, the Breaking Bads, the Mad Men, they all took all of it from Sopranos. And when you watch Sopranos, you're going to see it instantly and understand why Sopranos is the greatest TV show ever.
So I watched all 3 episodes that you recommended as your picks for this round. So I'm going to rate this based on my enjoyment. But the truth is I enjoyed all of them for very, very different reasons. And actually, you've all picked very different shows. Like, one of them is just like this very nice, lighthearted 50s comedy drama that's got these very touching moments, but also like very, very like broad bits of comedy as well. Like, there's a bit in the episode you picked, Rhianna, where she's literally teaching her friend how to swim. Yeah. And it's bizarre. and I was kind of losing interest a little bit in that moment, but then you're right, the Lenny Bruce stuff like really picks it back up, and their dynamic and their chemistry is just tasty. And Clarisse, you've really tapped into a part of me that really enjoys abstract, like just subconscious experimental art films that just go, how did you feel watching that? And if it annoyed you, if it made you angry or upset or confused, that maybe is what it's trying to do. And I love stuff like that, and I'm a massive fan of 2001: A Space Odyssey. And then there's The Sopranos, which I hadn't watched, and there's a lot of pressure about The Sopranos because you hear it's the greatest show ever made. So you're going in with like, all right, a lot of expectations, and is it going to take me ages to get into it? And I started at the 4th episode and knew exactly what was going on and massively enjoyed it and understood and picked up on all the dynamics. And I'm definitely going to continue watching it now. So I'm just going to rate it honestly. I'm going to give The Sopranos 3 points. I'm going to give Twin Peaks 2 points and Marvelous Mrs. Maisel 1 point. But you also got a bonus point for making Clarisse's dad cry. So that's 2 points each. So still neck and neck. 5 points each for Twin Peaks and Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, while The Sopranos is in the lead with 9 points.
Oh, we're not going to catch
I enjoyed all of them very much, but Marvelous Mrs. Maisel just lost my interest for a section of that episode.
Fair enough.
Okay, so the next round we're going to do is for craft, and this is an opportunity for you to talk about anything in your show that you think stands out above the rest. So whether that be the directing, the writing, the cinematography, the production design. I'm going to start with Joe and The Sopranos.
All right, I'm going to start with The Sopranos writing. It's got some of the best writing ever in TV. TV shows today still don't have writing as good as The Sopranos. Every character's so fleshed out and in depth, and you really learn who these people are over these 6 seasons. I already said Tony and Camillo, each of them won most outstanding lead actor and actress 3 times each. The way both of those characters interact with each other is amazing. And it's just, I've never seen that dynamic before with a husband and wife where they clearly love each other, but there's so much stuff going on. There's so much things happening behind the scenes that Camilla wants to pretend she can't see, and that Tony has to hide for the, I don't want to say the betterment of the family, but to keep the family where it's at.
What is it about this writing specifically that transcends other television shows that carries across 6 seasons?
It doesn't hold your hand. It doesn't try and explain anything to you. It is what it is. It just tells you the truth. Like, these characters are complex people and they speak like that.
Is there like an example that you have or something that sticks with you that, like, for me, it's about something that is continuing, like something that's been set up in like an early season that's paid off later in in one of the later seasons that you think like, wow, like they're planning for that, or like the way that they've allowed that to develop. Is there something like that stands out for you?
I would feel like just where the son goes. Like when you first meet the son, he's an innocent little kid. He's like 10 years old, you know what I'm saying? But when it ends, he's 18, and you just see that from having a dad who's a mob boss and him kind of being an underachiever or just a kid with no direction, where you can end up 7 years later. Like, and I pick him because he's the youngest when you start, and by the time you get to the end, it is just it's tragic where he ends up, like from where he starts. And I just don't want to get too in depth with what happens to him or what he goes through, but it's a journey that, you know what I'm saying, like.
And is that an element of it that you really connect with as well, like the fact that it's a father and son thing?
100%. I mean, father and son stuff hit me so hard all the time. I got a great relationship with my dad, so when I see this stuff in TV shows or movies, it always speaks to me so much. And it's crazy because I feel like because I've got such a positive relationship with my dad, it's tough to see where this relationship could have been reconciled or improved, and it just never does. But the dad's doing it because he feels he knows what's best for the family as a whole, even if it's sacrificing his relationship with his son, whereas the son's just looking at his dad like, why don't you love me? Like, it's a most.
Yeah, man, and it's the simplicity of that as well, like packed into this show that, like you say, is dealing with crime and the mob and all these different things. And one of the things that struck me straight away was, I think I somewhere knew in my awareness of pop culture that it was a show where a mob boss went to see a therapist, but I didn't realize how immediately I'd find that intriguing.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at a mob boss, they're the person who is the last person you'd think is going to seek therapist. And even in the show, Tony is hiding it the whole time because he knows at that point in time, if anyone else in the gang finds out he's seen a therapist, he loses all credibility, he loses his position. So this is something he's hiding the whole time. And I really feel like when the show starts, it is already from the first episode, the downward spiral of Tony Soprano. I feel like everything before that, he was living his best life, and then this is
and we've met him at the point of no return.
Yeah.
Okay, what stands out for you, Clarisse, in Twin Peaks in terms of like the craft of it, how it's made? Is there something in it particularly that stands out to you?
Well, I think Twin Peaks to me is it's David Lynch and Mark Frost, which I think a lot of people just think of it as David Lynch, and obviously like his blueprint is all over it. But the reason that it works so well, and I think the reason especially that it was so popular when it first aired, is because you need those two elements together. It's kind of what I was talking about with that really pretentious David Foster Wallace quote of the mundane and the macabre, because you have David Lynch, like the filmmaker behind Eraserhead, coming in with all his transcendental meditation weird ideas, and then you have Mark Frost, which was coming off Hill Street Blues. He was like a very sort of established traditional TV creator, and you fuse those things together and you get this perfect balance of a show that I think what's amazing about Twin Peaks watching the first season is how it kind of like suckers you in a little bit, because you think, oh, it's going to be like all the soap operas that I've ever watched, but there's a bit of a mystery because who killed Laura Palmer? And then in episode 3, like Dale Cooper visits the Red Room for the first time, and there's like, you know, a man like talking backwards and people whispering weird things, and it's pure David Lynch hallucinatory stuff. And I think like it's hard now because we're looking at it with all the sort of time knowing about all these iconic set pieces like the Red Room and the Owls Are Not What They Seem, and you know, Damn Good Coffee, and all these really, really iconic things that have just exploded out of the show and have just become part of pop culture. But I think to try and strip away all that knowledge and go back to like, hey, you're turning your TV set onto ABC at whatever time Twin Peaks was on a weekday night. You're sitting with your family for the, you know, the great new murder mystery. Who killed Laura Palmer? We'll find out. And then you sit down and he's like going into this weird subconscious Red Room where everything's backwards and people are whispering the name of the killer to him. Like, imagine the shock. Yeah. Imagine the shock of experiencing that on TV. And that's why I think fusing those two voices, because what's so interesting is that if you just have David Lynch on his own, you get Fire Walk With Me, which I really love, but it's a controversial movie and a lot of people hate it, and like, fine, they're allowed to. But then if you take David Lynch away, you get that dip in season 2 where Wisdom Earl came in and it just got really weird and campy and not good. And so I think my argument is sort of, it's having that perfect union is so crucial to making Twin Peaks what it was, which is this thing that was so completely unlike anything that had come before it. Right. And I don't think anything that's come after it, to be honest.
Yeah, you can't really emulate David Lynch without somebody going, you're doing David Lynch.
People try. That's the thing. You can't consciously do David Lynch.
Yeah.
You either are David
Lynch doesn't consciously do David Lynch.
Exactly. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Rhianna, is it what we've spoken about? Is it the production design? Is it the cinematography? Is it that stands out for you in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, or is it something else?
I think there is so much, actually, because when I knew we were going to be talking about this, in my head I was like, well, production design, you know, the visual aspect of Mrs. Maisel, that's got to win hands down, because when I think of The Sopranos, that's not what comes to mind visually. And again, because I haven't seen it, I don't know about the writing, but when I think about the look of it, I know what the look of it is, and it doesn't excite me visually. And then with Twin Peaks, yes, you have these incredible like things that you get on like your phone, you know, like the black and white zigzags and the Red Room and the talking backwards, those kind of gimmicks. And then you have something like Mrs. Maisel, which is yeah, I'm glad you spotted that. And then you have
gimmicks, she says.
And then you have Mrs. Maisel, which is taking you into a world that existed, but just really kind of amping it up and making it look so beautiful and inviting. So you have just, I mean, the fact that the budget on this alone must have been insane, because Midge Maisel wears a new costume every single kind of half hour or 15 minutes, and she looks insanely good. And she has these beautiful dresses. All the men look sharp as hell, and they kind of make a big thing about kind of how privileged she is. And I think it's really important to note that she is comes from a wealthy family, which, you know, you kind of go on a bit of a journey with her parents and everything.
It's a strange one, isn't it? Because it's like, she's really privileged and she gets to do all this lovely stuff, but also it's quite nice to watch her do that. And
yes,
she looks great.
It does, and it is, but we also have to interrogate that a little bit at times, but it does make it look so beautiful. I do think that the production design makes it look, you know, like something out of a Wes Anderson film, because you have all these amazing pastel colors and everything looks good enough to eat. You walk into a room and the carpet is matched with her coat, and that was just that. I think that was like accidental, but because the production team were just so in tune with what they wanted this character to look like, what they wanted her sensibilities to be, and how they also wanted to make a really, really interesting, complicated family kind of be also beautiful. And I kind of like that there isn't any compromise in that. Plus, like I say, you know, you have 50s New York, which is always going to be just one of the most beautiful, exciting
And they actually
places
sell
to
it.
be.
They make it feel like it is the 50s.
You don't ever think of it as green screen, right?
Or a
like,
set
you
or
never
anything like
see
that.
No, you're in there with the taxis and the diners. The attention to detail is so exciting and absolutely immerses you in this gorgeous world that you really want to live in and really want to be a part of, which 50s America is not necessarily a world that you do want to be a part of. So the fact they make it so inviting, I think, is just really a phenomenal feat.
Well, I think something positive that all these shows do for very different reasons is set up each of their settings and their worlds really, really well and let you live in those worlds, be it in the exaggerated way that Mrs. Maisel does or in the grounded and sort of more realistic take that The Sopranos has. And then Twin Peaks, obviously, is just like, there's nothing like it. And I think I really appreciated that we got a chance just then, Rhianna, to talk about the production design, because I think it's very, very easy to focus on, the more obvious aspects of creating something like this. But I think there's a place for things like production design and costume to really take the reins and be a reason why you enjoy something, and for them to really have an impact on the storytelling. And I think they do in Mrs. Maisel. I think that's part of the reason why I felt like I was pulled into this random episode. I hadn't seen Mrs. Maisel for over a year or so, and now just picking up season 3, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember how beautiful this show is. So again, I'm just going on, this is like the most random of points, and somebody in the comments is going to tear me apart for this. I am going to, because of the way you've argued it, I'm going to give The Sopranos the 3 points, because the writing seems to be, I mean, just from the random episodes that I saw, and if you're telling me that is consistent for 6 episodes, 3 points for you. Sorry, for 6 seasons, sorry. Bloody hell. And then, so 3 points for you, 2 points I'm going to give to Mrs. Maisel, and 1 point to Twin Peaks, which I know is going to be controversial, but I think Rhianna argued that very well.
Thank you.
I thought you was going to get all 3 points, to be honest.
So did I.
So at the moment, got an interesting little lineup at the moment. The Sopranos is leading with 12 points. The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel has 7 points, and Twin Peaks has 6 points.
Can't believe Twin Peaks is losing.
You would have been,
so upset.
you would have been neck and neck, Clarisse, if it wasn't for your dad crying.
I should have kept that to myself.
Okay, so the final round is cultural impact, and I want you to argue how your show influenced or changed the landscape of TV forever. Go. Somebody pick it up. I just want this to be a free-for-all.
Can I just jump in and say that I do think Mrs. Maisel is definitely not going to win this round, just because it hasn't got that same longevity.
It's the newest.
It's the newest one.
Prisoner of the moment,
And,
like I said.
I do think it's fantastic because it is such an interesting female lead, but it doesn't have that same cultural. It's kind of taken, I think, from shows that have come before it, and which has made it like the better beast now, I think. But I'm going to have to bow down to the other two.
You just sacrificed yourself.
I kind of have, because
Yeah.
there isn't a huge
Fair enough.
amount. Literally, the one kind of catchphase that comes out, I've already said, tits
Do you
up.
know
It's
what?
not going to catch on.
I'm going to give you a bonus point for your for your honesty.
Thank you.
Where's my bonus point for my honesty about my dad?
Clarisse, earn away.
Yeah,
Go,
I
go.
feel like with The Sopranos, there's so much cultural impact. I feel like The Sopranos legitly started the golden age of television. We're at where we're at
Clarisse is
today with
disagreeing
television
visually.
because because of The Sopranos. The Sopranos was highlighting mental illness, attacking gender roles, crime and family, and like heavy issues in family dynamics way before anyone else was. Like when you see shows like Breaking Bad, True Detective, where they're dark and gritty, it started with The Sopranos. I mean, even the chat you're talking about, the between husband and wife, just to me feels like every show that's massive that's come since then is doing it.
Even now Succession feels like a version of The Sopranos. I mean, Joe, you can literally sit this one out and win, but I think that unless I give out a bunch of bonus points,
Please don't.
Who knows?
Please
this
don't.
episode has been a bit chaotic.
Do you know what? I'd have gone into this and said Twin Peaks probably has had more cultural impact.
Do you think?
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
Clarisse, go on. Well, you've got
Twin
have the
Peaks
floor.
created prestige TV. Sopranos would absolutely not exist without Twin Peaks. You're going from this period before Twin Peaks existed. You had sitcoms, you had The Simpsons and Cheers, and you had the soap operas. You had Days of Our Lives, Dallas. Twin Peaks completely changed all of it by creating the kind of prestige television show that we have now today, where everyone's sitting down week by week wanting to find out what's the story, who killed Laura Palmer, like the water cooler discussions, the fan theories. And this was at the birth of the internet as well, so everyone was starting to go on the internet and discuss these things and try and figure out what's happening. Like, this was the first, like, I so disagree that Sopranos invented all of this. Like, Sopranos invented the very modern version of what prestige TV looks like, but Twin Peaks invented prestige TV, period. Like, there was nothing before, and then Twin Peaks came, and then all of the stuff came afterwards. And what I find interesting is that every showrunner of like every popular TV show has openly stated that they were influenced by Twin Peaks, including David Chase, who did The Sopranos, including Noah Hawley, who did Fargo, like the creators of The West Wing. Like, everybody is always consistently citing Twin Peaks as like, this is where it all comes from, because simply the idea of a television show that is treated as cinema, as art, did not exist until Twin Peaks came along. And even the idea of having like big movie directors come in and make television shows, like, obviously also did not exist until David Lynch did it. And now we have like everybody, like David Fincher and Martin Scorsese and Spike Lee, everyone's just making a TV show now. And just, like, none of it happened until Twin Peaks happened. And now
that's very well argued.
Now everything that we have now, like, would just simply, I'm really like adamant about this. It would simply not exist if Twin Peaks hadn't just broken that barrier.
Help me out. Like, do you think between these two?
I'm just trying to think about my own sort of personal, the world that I live in, what people talk about more, and it's Twin Peaks, because I just think there is. I'm so sorry, Joe. So cross with me.
Don't be sorry to Joe. He's won no matter what.
Listen,
it's just about this round.
I'm just interested to hear all of this now, because, like, I just feel like the universe I live in, Sopranos is it. This is why I'm just taking it.
Well, that's really interesting, because
I'm just learning.
I think that there is, we talk about like that sort of cult impact, and I think there is so much that is fantastic about Twin Peaks and so much that isn't. But I also love that we live in a world where we can have experimental television, even if I don't necessarily agree with it. I think for everything that Sopranos did, it's, I know what a great TV show it is without having watched it. I know that from everybody having said, it's great, but I don't know much more than that, right?
Because you need to watch it.
But with Twin Peaks, there was just so much discourse about every aspect of it. And I just think for any TV show that can prompt that kind of argument, that kind of conversation, and it's not all just like smooth sailing, yes, it's great, end of, that I think that is a more interesting thing, and I think that means that it's had more of a cultural impact on
also the
audiences.
ending. The Sopranos ending is famous, but like, you wouldn't have that open ending if it wasn't for Twin Peaks and How's Annie, the ending of season 2. Like, that invented the idea of leaving it open and not knowing what happened to your main character. And they did that in season 1 as well. Like, Dale Cooper gets shot, and that's just the end of the season. And so people were like, ugh. And it's kind of coming from soap operas, yes, where they did a lot of those cliffhangers. But I think to have a sort of this creation of prestige TV, and to have this open ending, and then they did it again in season 3, and you thought they weren't going to do it because everyone was waiting for David Lynch to explain everything, and they're fools for thinking that.
Yeah, they are stupid.
And we got all the way to season 3, and we got, I won't quote it because that might actually be a massive spoiler, but you also got this like completely open-ended. So yeah, Sopranos did it once, Twin Peaks did it 3 times. So
I mean,
boom.
Sopranos never got cancelled, so
yeah, but it's kind of like Icarus, it flew too high, it flew too close to the sun, because the only reason that Twin Peaks sort of had that bad period in season 2 is because David Lynch did not want to reveal who killed Laura Palmer. They were going to either leave it until the very, very, very end of the show, or just not tell anybody at all, which would have been it's because David Lynch was too experimental and too forward thinking.
I think you've argued your point really, really well, Clarisse. And
Invented
I think
prestige TV.
Inventing of that. And if you're just lying and there was something else that came before Twin Peaks that changed the game, but it
I'll
felt.
quote the articles to you. Some people at The Atlantic said it as well.
Okay, so it's not just you.
It's not just me.
All right, for this round then, I'm
agreed on.
gonna give Twin Peaks the 3 points, followed by The Sopranos with 2 points, and then 1 point for The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, as well as that bonus point for your honesty about how it shouldn't win this round.
There's a lot of plus points to it, but I just think cultural impact is not there yet.
So we have a clear winner. The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and Twin Peaks both end on 9 points, but far away in the lead. It would be wrong if it didn't win, I think. It's The Sopranos!
Well done, Joe.
Thank you.
Well done, Joe.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Honestly, you could have slept through that and still won, I think.
Yeah.
He almost did.
I mean, you guys made it easy for me.
Okay, Joe. In this episode, you get the award. I'm going to pass it to you now through time and space.
Thank you, Jack. Listen, I just want to thank Tony Soprano and the Soprano family and all the mob bosses out there.
Yeah.
This one's for you.
Where are you going to put it?
It's got to go next to the TV right on the show, right there, so I can watch. I can see it every time I watch another episode of The Sopranos.
Well done.
The greatest TV show ever.
But now to finish the show, we're doing my favourite part of the show, which is Unbox The Plot. And inside this box is my current favourite TV show. And I say current because I didn't want to say all-time favourite, but this to me is the most exciting and innovative piece of American TV that I've seen in a long time. I always come back to it. It's like a comfort watch for me, but it's also something that it's like something I've never seen.
So it's on TV at the moment, or not necessarily, but
it's not currently playing, but it's not been cancelled, and there is more to come.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Unboxing the plot.
I think I know what it is, but I haven't seen it, so I'm not going to be able to get
the first clue is a microphone.
Okay, I think. Do I go for it and just guess?
Why not, Clarisse? You've got nothing to lose. It's ultimately pointless.
Because I think this is referring to
You just said we got more points.
Scene.
Hold on.
Do I just hold? I don't do anything.
No, just you've written it down.
I've written it down.
We've got a guess.
Okay.
We've got a guess. In fact, if you win this, Clarisse, I'm going to ask Joe to give you back the award.
Because I'm thinking of a specific scene that is really famous from this show.
Okay.
And I think it involves that prop.
All right.
Changing the rules just mid-show.
The next clue is a little toy alligator.
Okay, I might have got this wrong.
I think you have, Clarisse. As soon as you were like, oh, it's a very specific scene, I was like, nah. So, alligator. Anybody got any ideas? Any ideas at all?
Literally no idea.
All right, okay. I bet there's people in the comments going, crazy.
Alligators.
All right. The third out of the 4 clues is just some peaches.
How many clues do we get?
There's one more clue to come, and then the last clue is going to give it away.
Were they supposed to get easier, these clues?
Yes.
They're not.
Oh.
Think about where is famous for peaches?
Oh, God. Okay, I've got it wrong.
Clarisse has got it wrong. She knows. And
I'm glad that Joe is
damn
looking as clueless as I am right now.
I'm lost.
And the fourth and final clue. That's Donald Glover's alternate. What's it called? Is pseudonym Childish Gambino.
Oh my God, that took me
for
such
his
a long
album
time.
Awaken My Love, which is featured in one of the episodes. Who's got a guess?
I can't remember what it's called.
Atlanta.
I know what it is now.
What did you think it was, Clarisse?
I thought it was Succession because he does that rap. I thought it was from that rap.
Nope.
And he's
Oh my God, that would have been so obscure.
That would have been a very good guess if it was right, but
Yeah.
it's actually just a really rubbish
decided
one.
just to be fun.
Joe, have you
and
not seen
be
Atlanta?
chaotic.
No, I have seen it actually.
You just didn't get any of these clues?
No.
Were they too
that's too
obscure?
bad. I just wasn't putting it together. It wasn't at the top of my mind.
So, they're musicians rapping and that. There's an alligator in the first episode of series 2. Peaches are from Atlanta. They're all got.
All peaches are from Atlanta.
Not all peaches.
I think they're from Georgia more
Like
generally.
the poster is them.
You should have pulled a cut out of Drake from the box.
Well, that's this week's episode. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you let us know your thoughts in the comments below, whether or not you agree or disagree. We want to hear both. Thank you to all of our guests for this week. We'll be back next week. So subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure you check out any US TV drama that's available on Prime Video. There's some good ones on there, including
Maisel is on there.
Mrs. Maisel. Thank you so much. See you again next time. Goodbye.